Good afternoon, everyone. Still very happy to see many DAO folks here. Today I'm going to talk about a road to DecenGov. My name is Q, Decentralized Technology Architect from HOPR. So for anyone that has not heard about HOPR for the first time, I would like to think about a list of websites that you have visited for the past week. And take a look around in the room and find out who would you be happy to share the list of the website with. Well, what if this list was for a year or even for your whole life online? So that's actually the reality of internet today. With minimum effort, your metadata are exposed. Is there a way of solving that? Yes, HOPR. HOPR is a network-level privacy protocol that protects metadata privacy through a decentralized mixnet. I'm not going to go too deep into the technology itself because my colleague Amira had already gave a talk yesterday about the technology, so please feel free to check it out. But what I want to emphasize today is that besides the fact that HOPR has put into a lot of effort to make this decentralized technology to be compatible with a privacy protocol, there's an aspect that we shouldn't overlook. The potential point of failure is centralized governance. So HOPR provides the layer 0 infrastructure, and who should be in charge of such an important and fundamental aspect of the network? Should it be a centralized institute? Well, we all know that they didn't have a good track record of the privacy. Or a private company, but they are motivated by the profit margin and they are a potential legal pressure. And sometimes they just directly shake hands with some intelligence agencies. And here, we at HOPR, we believe that the only way that we can assure a network-level metadata privacy over the long haul is by means of a decentralized network. A network that can run autonomously on its own, by itself, and not under the control of any company or organization. So, and this is actually the ideal governance that we, in our eyes, which is DecenGov. DecenGov stands for Decentralized Community Enabling Governance. And the goal of DecenGov is to achieve the balance of on-chain governance and off-chain governance. And the on-chain governance will basically represent the ultimate decision-making power that lies with the community token holders. And for the off-chain part, it will, of course, first and foremost, offers the place for discussion, the place to exchange ideas, but also it contains other perks of old world legal contexts, such as the owning properties, the enforcing rights in the old new world. So, of course, this DAO concept is actually not something new in crypto world, but what's the current DAO reality? Are they providing enough governance? Or are they robust enough against or centralized attacks? So let's have a quick recap on the latest Ethereum news. A young Twitter account just recently made an announcement about an OTC deal of 500k uni worth of $10 million. And right now, of course, people just ask questions. So who are they? And what did they do? What actually happened during the governance process? And how did they receive that fund? So it turns out that it was a handful full of delegates with a control of massive voting power that was able to manage both discussion and vote, regardless of what the broader community wanted. And what did they want? Discussion, broader participation. So among all the focus in DAO building so far that's been on how to mechanize the process of giving proposals or voting, HOPR actually has our experiences. For example, 2 years ago at EthCC 2, I gave a talk on my work on how to represent a fully fledged, legally compliant Swiss association in smart contracts. But this time, the ultimate goal of reaching the DecenGov, with that in mind, we thought that it's time to take a step back and focus on the grassroots concepts first, and then build the fancy technical bells and whistles later. So to find out the best mechanism that provides the participation and engagement of a decentralized governance, we decided to run a full series of governance experiments. So we started both, actually. The first question we asked our community was, how should we first publicly distribute our 50 million HOPR token? Oh yeah, that's actually indeed a vital question for a project, like how do you launch that? And who did we ask this question about? Our engaged community. So to start with, we chose to bootstrap this governance with our engaged community by including the testnet participants, the early community members, and partners and advocates. Hello? Yeah. So for all these three together, it consists of our what we call the Genesis DAO. And we are more confident that, firstly, there's less probable of having Sybil's. And given the Genesis DAO was announced only after a series of community events, this retrospective inclusion has no way to gain. And in total, only 3K accounts was considered as Genesis DAO members. And for this experiment, how do we do that? As you may heard the word KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. For the very first experiment, we chose the easiest way of doing so. So the discussion, for example, there are only 3 phases, starting from proposal, discuss, and vote. Discussion happened on our forum. Propose and vote happened separately on the snapshot page. To stimulate the conversations, to stimulate the discussions, actually, we didn't put too much constraints. Beyond those small restrictions given by our lawyers, the world is oyster. So we trust the DAO to give what we believe, and we trust the DAO to do what's right for the long-term health of the project. And we didn't know how engaged our community was. So we actually only put a very low bar to make the proposal pass on the voting phase, which is 3%. And as we paid already particular attention in choosing who are the community members, the rest is easy. So one Genesis DAO account, basically each account members holds a non-transferable token for the voting. And we were actually able to see that more or less every second participated in the experiments. And we're very, very proud of the community for their strong engagement. So wrapping up this practice, we found that the discussion period was actually a little bit too short because we only gave 72 hours, and that was not enough for a thorough exchange on a complex topic. And the threshold, as I said, for entering the final stage was actually low because we chose the number by benchmarking with existing DAO votes, and our assumptions about engagement were too pessimistic. The fact that we didn't have any finalization of proposals make that many proposals didn't make the brief or were inconsistent with their previous folks. Discussion of voting were actually held in different places, make the fact that there's a bit counterproductive for our members to vote and participate in the governance. And we also realized that with the way that how we choose the Genesis DAO members, there's no reliable way of expand the membership. So with this governance experiments, what we found out is actually we managed to find a clearer objective of our governance system, which is the DecenGov should be fair to both big and small token holders, and it also should be practical so that the process is simple enough to participate. And of course, trustworthy, because voting should be trustless and immutable. Effective, so that we want our users to make the decisions for the protocol themselves. Responsible, so that the decisions are for the long-term good of the protocol. And private, of course. We're a privacy project. So your privacy should not be violated. Carrying on with what we learned from the previous Genesis DAO, we launched our second governance voting, and this is for the first time that all the HOPR token holders can participate. And this time, the question we asked to our community is that how we should do with the funds in the Uniswap pool that was actually allocated by the Genesis DAO after the launch. How are we going to distribute this among decentralized exchanges? And this time, how did we do? I think I bet all the tech people already heard the term continuous improvement. If not, you're particularly creative, right? So guess what I'm going to say? This time we improved. So we introduced the finalization step into the governance process, and also at the referendum stage, we prolonged the discussion period and add a bit more pauses in between each phase. And what's quite special is that this discussion is moderated. So authors are actually encouraged to merge their similar proposals in order to prevent the vote splitting. And we also introduce a targeted incentive to reward those high quality contributions and engagement. And this time we also took the approach of hybriding one person, one vote in the discussion and referendum phase, and then one token, one vote in the final voting phase. As we learned from previously, we just lift the bar so that the quorum is higher for proposals to pass to final vote. And HOPR tokens can actually be included from everywhere, and not just those ones that are idle in your wallets. What does it mean? So if you hold a lot of tokens from different projects, guess what? You can actually have the similar many kinds of tokens just with HOPR. So HOPR lives on mainnet. It's an ERC777 token, and it can be bridged on XDAI chain because we have run our testnet on XDAI. But to still benefit the feature of 777, it can be swapped. It can be wrapped into WX HOPR, which is going back to ERC777. And coming back to the Ethereum mainnet side, so over the past few months, since our token launch, there's like a huge Uniswap V2 pool living on Ethereum mainnet. And also, given we have offered the yield farming program, so there's like a HOPR Farms program, HOPR Farms smart contract that people can stake their tokens into. So altogether, HOPR tokens exist in so many various forms on two chains. And despite those forms, one thing it's very clear is that we don't want to leave any HOPR holders alone in the governance process, regardless where their tokens are. So we want to provide them a very smooth experience into the voting. So we created a cross-chain strategy on snapshot page to make sure that the HOPR tokens of any form, they can be captured in the voting. So the native snapshot strategy, we use the ERC20 balance of for the HOPR token on the mainnet. And then we extend that so that it can capture two tokens at the same time on the XDAI chain. But due to the fact that a snapshot only works for the voting, it actually needs a predetermined block number, and then these two chains, they don't share the same block number, so we need to actually translate the block numbers. And the way we do that is to we use the graph to combine those two chains together, and then does the translation. And the last final pieces is the Uniswap V2 token and our farmers. So those two tokens, we need to be careful is that these two tokens, they don't share the same value as HOPR tokens. But we extended so that the calculation of nominal HOPR balance is out of the box. And with that, we actually basically allows all our token holders to lay back and vote. This is all actually what they need. So we have this strategy published under the Snapshot strategy page. And if your project is under the same situation, please feel free to check out our code, use our forkit. So I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Snapshot team because for their effort into building such like a gasless off-chain voting system, and also for being very supportive in our governance experiment. So coming back to our DAO, by the end of May, we have already noticed that the participation of our second and the first open DAO experiment was actually pretty high. We observed around 15% of all the circulating HOPR was used into the second vote. And we thank our community for participating in this. And finally, until now, the entire journey, what we have learned so far is that the longer period and the more incentives actually engaged the participation. So there are 257 participants in the discussion, and among them 220 active contributors with dozens of users giving very, very high quality inputs. And even though the topic was a little bit more technical and less in the self-interest of participants, so the participation rates were still high. And this time, we reduced the barrier for the voting. And so we offer this smooth experiments to our community members. And we actually noticed that although that we put more effort into moderating the entire process, but there's less support from the community front into the technically voting process. But did this experiment give us the perfect mechanism for DAO, for our DecenGov? Not yet. We still want to explore that if or is the delegation is necessary. The referendum made content accessible in our DecenGov experiment, and it's easily digestible for community members to make their own choices. So we want to know that if delegation still needs or not. And the final vote was still significantly influenced by the whales, so we want to actually improve the process to incorporate other voting strategies, for example, quadratic voting. And the fun fact is that if we do the retrospective calculation of our vote, the result could be different if we have adopted the quadratic voting in the beginning. And last question is, will the participant anticipate incentive mechanisms and behave differently? For example, will they mindlessly support some proposals? Yeah. All in all, to summarize, community is definitely at the heart of DecenGov. So we believe that the community actually knows more than our small team, and it is crucial to engage the community and encourage the participation into the governance decisions. And we will definitely work together with our community to reach DecenGov. Thank you very much. I've already included some of the sources here if you want to read more about our experiments, and I'm open for questions. Thank you. Thanks. I'm happy that my presentation is clear. And yeah, there is also source code online about this strategy of snapshots, so feel free to check it out. I've included everything in my slides. So yeah, I think it will be available online. Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.